Captain Alan Lewis stood alone on the observation deck of the USS Harbinger. The stars stretched out before him, distant and cold. He placed his hand against the transparent aluminum window, feeling the slight chill that even the best insulation couldn't quite eliminate. The massive warship hummed around him, its systems running in perfect harmony. "Beautiful, isn't she?" said a voice behind him. Alan turned to see Fleet Admiral Diane Miller approaching. Her uniform was crisp and perfect, but her eyes looked tired. She hadn't slept much lately. Few of them had. "Yes, ma'am," Alan replied. 15 years of work. Hard to believe we're finally here. The Harbinger was unlike any ship ever built by human hands. At just over 2 miles long, its sleek black hull absorbed rather than reflected light, making it difficult to see against the darkness of space. But it wasn't the ship's size or its stealth capabilities that made it special. It was what lay beneath. "Have you tested the quantum displacement drive today?" Admiral Miller asked, her voice dropping to a near whisper despite them being alone. Alan nodded. "Just before you arrived. The ship phased at 97% efficiency. We could have passed through a planet and barely felt a bump." Miller smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "And the gravitational lance?" "We targeted an asteroid in the belt. It didn't just destroy it. It collapsed the matter entirely. Created a temporary micro-black hole that lasted about 3 minutes before evaporating." The Admiral walked to the window and stood beside him. Earth hung below them, blue and perfect. "The Concord would have our heads if they knew what we've built here." She wasn't wrong. The Galactic Concord, an alliance of 47 spacefaring species, had welcomed humans to their ranks only 30 years ago. They had seemed kind and generous, sharing technology and knowledge. But they also came with rules. Many, many rules. No species may develop weapons capable of destroying planetary bodies. No species may develop drive systems that alter the fabric of space-time. All military vessels must be registered and inspected. The list went on and on. Most alien species had joined the Concord after thousands of years of development. They had grown up slowly, building their societies and technologies over time. Humans had rushed, from first steps on the moon to faster-than-light travel in less than 2 centuries. It made the others nervous. "We're not breaking the rules," Alan said, repeating the justification they had all been using. "We're just bending them a little, for protection." Miller raised an eyebrow. "You don't sound convinced." Alan looked back at the stars. "I've read Earth history. We've never been good at having weapons we don't eventually use. That's why we picked you, Captain, because you understand the weight of this command." A soft beep interrupted them. Alan tapped his wrist communicator. "Lewis here. Captain, we have a situation," came the voice of Lieutenant Olivia Grant, his weapons specialist. "A ship just dropped out of FTL near Jupiter's orbit. It's Zalarian." Alan and the Admiral exchanged looks. The Zalarians were one of the senior species in the Concord, blue-skinned and cautious by nature. "Are they hailing us?" Alan asked. "No, sir, they appear to be running deep scans of the system. And they're focusing on us." Miller cursed under her breath. "They weren't supposed to detect us through the cloaking field." The test firing, Alan realized. The gravitational disturbance must have caught their attention. They rushed to the bridge, where the crew stood at their stations, faces tense. On the main screen, a sleek silver vessel hung against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling clouds. It was small by Concord standards, likely a scout or research vessel. "They're scanning us with everything they've got," reported Lieutenant Grant. Her fingers danced over the weapons console. "Should I power up defensive systems?" "No," Alan ordered. "Let's not look more threatening than we already are." "Too late," said Peter Wilson, the communications officer. He was frowning at his display. "They just sent a burst transmission through the Concord relay network. I couldn't block it." Alan felt a chill run down his spine. "What did it say?" It was encrypted, but the header was addressed to the Concord Security Council. "Priority level. Urgent." Admiral Miller gripped the back of a chair. "They know." The next 48 hours were a blur of diplomatic messages and emergency meetings. The Concord ambassadors demanded explanations. How had humans developed technology that should have been centuries beyond their reach? Why had they hidden it? What were their intentions? Earth's government tried to downplay the situation, claiming the Harbinger was merely an experimental vessel designed to test theoretical concepts. No one believed them. By the third day, 17 conquered ships had taken positions around Earth, keeping a respectful but firm distance. Not quite a blockade, but the message was clear. Sam Rodriguez, the chief engineer, found Alan in his quarters reviewing the latest demands from the conquered. "They want us to dismantle her," Alan said without looking up. "Take apart the quantum, drive in the gravitational lance, give them all our research data, submit to 100 years of supervision of our military development." Sam leaned against the wall. "And if we refuse?" "Expulsion from the Concorde at minimum, possibly worse." "Can they do that? Attack us?" Alan finally looked up. "There are 47 species in the Concorde, Sam. Some have been spacefaring for 50,000 years. They have weapons we can't even comprehend. But none of them have the Harbinger," Sam pointed out. There was a long silence. Finally, Alan said, "That's what I'm afraid of." The call came that evening. Admiral Miller connected from Earth, her face grim on the screen. Behind her, the lights of the Pentagon complex glowed. "The Security Council has declared the Harbinger a Class 1 violation of the Weapons Limitation Treaty," she said without preamble. "They're sending specialists to oversee its dismantling next week." Alan felt his crew's eyes on him. "And our response?" Miller straightened her shoulders. "We've refused. The President has authorized Operation Distant Thunder." A murmur ran through the bridge. They had all been briefed on the contingency plan, but few had believed it would actually happen. "Your orders are to take the Harbinger beyond conquered space," Miller continued. "Show them what she can do without actually threatening any inhabited systems. Make it clear that humans are not to be pushed around." "And then?" Alan asked quietly. Miller's expression softened just slightly. "And then we hope they choose diplomacy over conflict. Because if they don't..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. After the transmission ended, Alan turned to his crew. 25 men and women, the best Earth had to offer. They watched him waiting. "Plot a course to the edge of conquered space," he ordered. "Prepare for quantum displacement. We leave in 6 hours." As the crew rushed to their duties, Alan returned to the observation deck. Earth still hung below, beautiful and fragile. He wondered when, or if, he would see it again. The Harbinger was about to become the most feared ship in the galaxy. And Alan Lewis, who had always wanted nothing more than to explore the stars in peace, would be known as the captain of the warship too powerful to exist. 3 months passed like a dream. The Harbinger moved through the darkness between stars, staying away from the busy trade routes and populated systems of the conquered. Captain Alan Lewis kept his crew sharp with daily drills and system tests, but the isolation was starting to wear on everyone. "Status report," Alan said as he entered the bridge for the morning shift. Lieutenant Olivia Grant looked up from her weapons console. "All systems normal, Captain. The quantum drive is operating at 98% efficiency after Sam's adjustments yesterday." Alan nodded and took his seat in the command chair. "Communications?" "Still nothing direct from Earth," Peter Wilson replied. "But I've been monitoring conquered channels. The sanctions against human colonies are getting worse. Some supply ships have been turned away." This wasn't good news. Earth could sustain itself, but the newer colonies depended on regular shipments. Alan rubbed his temples. Their mission was to demonstrate the Harbinger's power, to make the Concorde think twice about pushing humans too far. But so far they'd done nothing but hide. "Captain," called Carol Matthews from the sensor station, "I'm picking up unusual readings from the Proxima Delta sector." Alan frowned. Proxima Delta was home to one of the newer human colonies, just 4 years old with about 3,000 settlers. "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures consistent with weapons fire. And there's a distress signal, very weak." The bridge went silent. Alan stood up. "Put it on speakers." A crackling voice filled the room, breaking up every few words. "Colony Proxima Delta requesting immediate assistance. We are under attack by..." What appear to be Scourge vessels. Our defenses are failing. Any Concord peacekeepers in range? Please respond. Children are... The message looped back to the beginning. Alan clenched his jaw. The Scourge weren't a single species, but a collection of pirates and raiders from across the galaxy, preying on isolated settlements. They were supposed to be kept in check by Concord patrols. Any Concord ships responding? Alan asked. Peter shook his head. None that I can detect. The nearest patrol would be at least 2 days away at standard FTL speeds. And how far are we? 6 hours at maximum conventional drive. Just under 1 hour if we use the quantum displacement system. Alan paced the bridge. Their orders were clear. Stay hidden, demonstrate power only in uninhabited systems, wait for diplomacy to work. Engaging. The Scourge would reveal their position and capabilities, but a human colony was under attack. People were dying. Plot a course for Proxima Delta, Alan ordered. Conventional drive for now. Ready all standard weapon systems. The Harbinger changed course, its massive engines pushing it to speeds that would have been impossible for Earth, ships just a decade ago. Still, it felt too slow. Every hour that passed meant more lives lost on the colony. 5 hours into their journey, another message came through, more desperate than the first. The colony's main defensive shield had failed. The Scourge were landing ground forces. Enough, Alan said. Prepare for quantum displacement. Get us there now. The ship hummed as the revolutionary drive engaged. Space itself seemed to fold around them, the stars blurring into lines and then reforming in a new pattern. The Harbinger slipped partly, out of normal space-time, bypassing the limitations of physics. They emerged above Proxima Delta, a small green and blue world that should have been peaceful. Instead, 5 ugly ships surrounded it, their designs a mismatched collection of stolen technology. Energy weapons fired down at the surface, targeting the colony's remaining defenses. They haven't seen us yet, Olivia said. Our approach was too fast. Hail the lead ship, Alan ordered. Peter opened a channel. This is Captain Alan Lewis of the Earth vessel Harbinger. Cease your attack on Proxima Delta immediately and withdraw from this system. The response was quick and dismissive. A harsh voice laughed. Another human ship? Good. We could use more slaves and parts. Your colony is already falling. You'll be next. The transmission cut off. On the screen, one of the Scourge vessels turned toward them, weapons powering up. They're targeting us, Olivia reported calmly. Their weapons are primitive by our standards. Our shields should hold easily. Return fire, Alan ordered. Conventional. Weapons only. Target their engines and weapon systems. Let's see if we can persuade them to leave without revealing everything. The Harbinger's laser arrays came to life, striking the approaching Scourge ship with surgical precision. Its shields flickered and failed, and one of its weapon mounts exploded in a shower of sparks. But the other Scourge ships were now turning, their attention to this new threat. They moved to surround the Harbinger, firing as they came. Shields at 82%, Sam Rodriguez reported from engineering. They're hitting us with everything they've got. The ship rocked as a particularly strong blast struck them. Alan held onto his chair. Continue targeting their weapons. Disable, don't destroy if possible. For several minutes the battle continued. The Harbinger was more advanced, but outnumbered. They had disabled 2 Scourge vessels, but the largest ship, clearly the flagship, remained untouched. It's heavy, shields absorbing everything they fired at it. That flagship has Tauran shield technology, Sam said, sounding impressed despite himself. They must have stolen it. Our conventional weapons won't pierce it easily. On the screen, the colony continued to suffer. Fires were visible on the surface now. Lieutenant Grant, Alan said quietly. Prepare the gravitational lance. Minimum. Power setting. Olivia's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded and began the sequence. Targeting the Scourge flagship. Lance charged to 12% capacity. That's still enough to... Sam began. I know what it's enough to do. Alan cut him off. Fire. The lance made no visible beam. There was no dramatic light show or explosion. One moment the Scourge flagship was there, and the next it began to collapse inward. as if being crushed by an invisible hand. The ship's hull crumpled like paper folding in on itself until it was a fraction of its original size. Then, as the gravitational distortion intensified, the compressed mass began to pull in everything nearby. Two smaller scourge vessels, too close to their leader, found themselves caught in the artificial gravity well. Their engines flared as they tried to escape, but it was useless. They spiraled toward the compressed remains of the flagship, colliding with it in a brief, bright flash. Then silence. Where three ships had been, there was nothing but scattered debris being pulled into a slowly dissipating gravitational knot. The remaining scourge vessels didn't wait for another demonstration. They turned and fled, jumping to FTL speeds as soon as they cleared the planet's gravity well. "Colony is hailing us," Peter said softly. They're cheering." But Alan wasn't celebrating. He was watching the sensor readings from the site of the gravitational collapse. The lance had worked exactly as designed. Perhaps too well. "Captain," Peter said, his voice changing. "I'm picking up transmissions on multiple channels. The Scourge ships are broadcasting across all their networks. They're talking about us." "What are they saying?" Alan asked. "They're calling us a planet killer. They're saying we broke the laws of physics. Word is spreading fast." Alan looked at the empty space where three enemy ships had been. The Harbinger had saved the colony, but at what cost? Their secret was out. And worse, they'd just shown the galaxy exactly why the Concorde had wanted to ban their ship in the first place. The quantum displacement drive could hide them. The gravitational lance could destroy almost anything, but neither could stop the message now racing through the stars. The humans had built a monster. 6 months had passed since the Harbinger left Earth. 3 months since they had rescued the colony at Proxima Delta. Captain Alan Lewis sat in his private quarters, reading the latest encrypted message from Admiral Miller. The news wasn't good. Q. Door chimed. "Enter," Alan called, setting down his tablet. Commander Grace Young stepped inside. As the ship's diplomatic officer, she had been unusually busy these past months. Her normally neat uniform looked wrinkled, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. "You wanted to see me, Captain?" Alan gestured to a chair. "We just received new orders from Earth. The Concorde has issued an ultimatum. We have 30 days to surrender the Harbinger, or Earth will be expelled from galactic society." Grace sat down heavily. "Can they do that?" "They can. And Admiral Miller thinks they might not stop there. Some species are pushing for military action against Earth. Because of what we did at Proxima Delta?" Alan shook his head. "Not just that. The Concorde scientists have been studying our test firings. They believe the quantum displacement drive and the gravitational lance are more dangerous than we realized. They're saying these technologies could destabilize space-time itself if used extensively." Grace frowned. "Is that possible?" Before Alan could answer, his communicator beeped. "Captain, this is Sam. I need you in engineering. Now." Something in the chief engineer's voice made Alan stand immediately. "On my way. Commander Young, you too." They hurried through the corridors of the massive ship. Crew members stepped aside as they passed, their faces showing a mixture of pride and worry. Everyone on board knew they were famous now, or infamous depending on who you asked. In engineering, Sam Rodriguez stood before a large holographic display. The image showed what looked like a tear in fabric, edges frayed and unstable. "What am I looking at, Sam?" Alan asked. "This is a microfracture in space-time, Captain. It formed after our last jump using the quantum drive." Alan stepped closer to the display. "I thought the fractures were supposed to heal themselves." "They were. That's what all our models predicted." Sam ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd developed over the months. "But they're not healing as fast as they should. Some aren't healing at all." Grace looked between them. "What does that mean?" "It means the Concorde scientists might be right," Sam said quietly. "If we keep using the drive, especially at high power, we could eventually cause permanent damage to the fabric of space-time." The theoretical models were incomplete. Alan's mind raced. This changed everything. The Harbinger wasn't just a weapon that could destroy ships or even planets. It was potentially a threat to reality itself. "Can we fix it?" he asked. "Maybe." Sam pointed to another section of the display. "I've been working with Frank from the science division. We think we can modify the drive to minimize the fractures, maybe even repair existing ones, but we need time." Alan nodded. "How much time?" 2 weeks for the modifications, maybe another week for testing." "You have 10 days, Alan said. "The Concord isn't going to wait forever." Commander Young set up a meeting with their representatives. "Tell them we're aware of the issues and working on solutions." "Where should I arrange this meeting?" Grace asked. "Neutral territory. The trading station at Centauri Junction. Make it clear this is a good faith effort on our part." After they left engineering, Alan returned to the bridge. The crew watched him expectantly as he took his command chair. They had all heard rumors by now. "Peter, any unusual communications?" he asked the communications officer. "Yes, sir." Concord. "Diplomatic channels are busy and—" Peter hesitated. "We're also picking up increased encrypted transmissions between their military vessels. They're mobilizing." Alan wasn't surprised. The Concord wouldn't rely purely on diplomacy, not with what they believed was at stake. "Set course for Centauri Junction," he ordered. "Conventional drive only, no quantum jumps unless absolutely necessary." 5 days later, the Harbinger arrived at the massive space station that served as a trading hub for dozens of species. Commander Young had arranged for a small Concord delegation to meet them. Alan had selected her and Science Officer Frank Bennett to accompany him. The meeting room was designed for comfort by many different biological standards. Some chairs were tall and narrow, others low and wide. There were even liquid-filled containers, for species that didn't have solid forms. 4 Concord representatives waited for them: a tall, blue-skinned Zellarian, a pair of insectoid Vrex, and a Jovan, whose crystalline body glittered under the lights. "Captain Lewis," the Zellarian greeted them, her translator making her voice sound almost musical. "I am High Counselor Nara. We appreciate your willingness to meet." The atmosphere was tense but civil as they sat down. Alan explained that they had discovered the problems with their technology and were working to fix them. "Your efforts come too late," said one of the Vrex, mandibles clicking. "The damage is spreading. Our scientists have detected 12 new spatial anomalies in the past month alone." Frank leaned forward. 12? "Our sensors only picked up the ones our ship created directly. Are you saying there are others?" The 4 aliens exchanged looks. The Jovan's crystalline form changed color, slightly a sign of emotion. "You are not the only ones experimenting with these technologies," Nara said carefully. "Your ship's appearance proved such weapons could work. Others have taken notice." Alan felt cold. "Who? Other Concord species?" "We cannot say. But know this. The ultimatum stands. Your ship must be surrendered and its technology contained. The safety of our galaxy depends on it." The meeting continued for hours. Grace did her best to negotiate for more time, but the Concord representatives remained firm. As they were preparing to leave, Nara approached Alan privately. "Captain, there is something you should know," she said, her voice low. "Not all in the Concord believe your ship should be destroyed. Some think its technology could be useful." "Useful for what?" Alan asked. Nara's large eyes blinked slowly. "Evolution requires adaptation. Some believe the next step for sentient life is control over space-time itself. Your primitive species has stumbled onto the beginning of that path." Before Alan could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Peter's voice came through Alan's communicator, urgent and sharp. "Captain, a fleet just dropped out of FTL. Conquered military vessels, at least 30 of them. They're surrounding the station and demanding we surrender immediately." Nara didn't look surprised. "It seems some in the Concord have lost patience with diplomacy." As Alan hurried back to the docking bay with his team, his mind raced with questions. Had the meeting been a trap? Or had the Concord military acted without authorization? And what did Nara mean about evolution and controlling space-time? One thing was clear. The Harbinger's time was running out. The most powerful human warship ever built was about to face its greatest challenge. And the stakes were even higher than they had imagined. We need to leave now, Alan said as they rushed through the station corridors back to the Harbinger's docking port. Security alarms continued to sound, and station residents of various species hurried in all directions, creating chaos. What about the negotiations? Grace asked, struggling to keep up. They were never going to work, Alan replied grimly. The Concord had already decided. When they reached the ship, Lieutenant Carol Matthews was waiting at the airlock with a security team. Captain, we're ready to depart, but there's a problem. The station has engaged docking clamps. We're locked in place. Alan tapped his communicator. Sam, can you override the clamps? Already working on it, the chief engineer replied. But we've got bigger problems. The Concord ships are powering up weapons. Their energy signatures are off the charts. Alan and his team hurried to the bridge. On the main screen, they could see the fleet of Concord vessels surrounding the station, sleek, powerful ships from a dozen different species, all united against them. Options? Alan asked, taking his command chair. We could fight, Olivia suggested from the weapons console. The gravitational lance could take out several of them before they knew what hit them. And kill everyone on the station in the process, Frank pointed out. Plus, we'd be confirming their worst fears about us. What about the quantum drive? Alan asked. Can we jump out? Sam's voice came through the speakers. Not from inside the station. The field would tear the whole place apart. We need to clear the docking bay first. Peter looked up from his communications console. They're hailing us, Captain. On screen, the image changed to show a stern-faced Moravian commander, his scaled skin a deep purple color that indicated anger in his species. Human vessel Harbinger. You are ordered to power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. This is not a request. We're engaged in diplomatic discussions with the Concord Council, Alan replied calmly. Your fleet's presence here is premature and provocative. The Moravian scales darkened further. The time for talk is over. You have 5 minutes to comply before we open fire. The screen went blank. Alan turned to his crew. I need ideas fast. Captain, Frank said suddenly. I've been analyzing the scan data from our meeting with the Concord representatives. There's something strange about the spatial anomalies they mentioned. What kind of strange? Frank brought up a display. Based on what we know about the quantum fractures our drive creates, these new anomalies don't match the pattern. They're not random tiers, they're almost like doorways. Doorways to what? Grace asked. I don't know. But they're artificial. Designed. Someone is deliberately creating these ruptures in space-time. Alan thought back to what Nara had said about evolution and control over space-time. Could this be what she was hinting at? A faction within the Concord experimenting with similar technology? It's possible, Frank nodded. And if that's true, the Harbinger isn't the real threat they're worried about. We're just the convenient scapegoat. Sam, Alan called over the comm, how are we coming with those clamps? Almost there. I've rerouted power to the hull electromagnets. When I give the word, we'll create a reverse polarity pulse that should disengage the locks. Everyone prepare for emergency departure, Alan ordered. Olivia, ready defensive systems only. No weapons unless I give the command. The minutes ticked by. On the screen, they could see the Concord ships moving into attack positions. 30 seconds to their deadline, Peter reported. Sam? Alan asked. Ready when you are, Captain. Alan took a deep breath. Do it. The ship shuddered as electromagnetic energy surged through the hull. With a series of loud clangs, the docking clamps released. Thrusters only, Alan ordered. Take us out slowly, no sudden moves. The Harbinger began to back out of the docking bay. On the screen, they could see the Concord fleet tracking their movement, weapons locked on. They're charging weapons, Olivia reported. Hold course, Alan said. Let's not give them an excuse. Captain, Peter called out. I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the edge of the system. Something's coming out of FTL. A new ship appeared on their sensors, unlike any they had seen before. It was massive, at least 3 times the size of the Harbinger, with a strange, asymmetrical design that seemed to bend light around it. What is that? Grace whispered. The unknown vessel accelerated toward the conquered fleet. Streams of energy shot from multiple points on its hull, striking 3 conquered ships simultaneously. The vessels didn't explode, they simply collapsed. In on themselves, just like the Scourge flagship had when hit by the Harbinger's gravitational lance. "It's using the same technology we are," Sam said in disbelief, "but much more advanced." The Concorde fleet broke formation, turning their attention to this new threat. Communications channels exploded with urgent messages. "Peter, can you identify that ship?" Alan asked. "Negative, sir. It's not broadcasting any identification, but I am picking up a signal directed specifically at us." "Let's hear it." A voice filled the bridge, speaking in accented English. "Harbinger, this is your opportunity to escape. We will occupy the conquered fleet. Use your quantum displacement drive and meet us at these coordinates." A series of numbers appeared on their navigation screen. "Who are you?" Alan demanded. "Friends. Who share your interest in the evolution of space-time technology. Hurry, this window won't last long." The mysterious ship continued its attack on the conquered fleet, which was now fully engaged in battle. The Harbinger had been forgotten in the chaos. "It could be a trap," Grace cautioned. "Or it could be answers," Frank countered. "Those coordinates are beyond the galactic rim. There's nothing out there in conventional space." Alan made his decision. "Sam, is the quantum drive ready?" "Ready, Captain. But remember, those microfractures will get worse with each jump. Plot a course to those coordinates, 1 jump only." The Harbinger moved clear of the station as the battle raged behind them. The quantum displacement drive hummed to life, the ship phasing partially out of normal space-time. The stars blurred and stretched. For a moment, reality itself seemed to bend around them. Then everything snapped back into place. They had arrived in what appeared to be empty space. No stars, no planets, nothing but darkness. "Where are we?" Alan asked. "Coordinates match," Peter confirmed, "but there's nothing here." "Wait," Frank said, studying his console. "I'm detecting a massive structure directly ahead. It's cloaked somehow." As they watched, the emptiness before them shimmered and faded, revealing an enormous space station, unlike anything humans had ever built. It seemed ancient, its design both organic and geometric, flowing in ways that shouldn't have been structurally possible. "It's bigger than Earth's moon," Sam whispered in awe. A communication channel opened. Automatically, the same voice they had heard before spoke again. "Welcome, Harbinger. You've taken your first step into a much larger universe. Prepare to dock. We have much to discuss about the true nature of the technology you've discovered, and the danger we all face." Alan looked at the ancient station floating before them. They had escaped the conquered, but what had they found instead? Friends? Enemies? Or something beyond their understanding? Whatever waited inside that station would change everything. They thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. The Harbinger docked with the ancient space station. Alan led a small team consisting of Grace, Frank, Olivia, and Sam through the airlock. They all carried hand scanners and sidearms, unsure what to expect. The interior of the station was unlike anything they had seen before. The walls seemed to flow like liquid while remaining solid. Soft light came from everywhere and nowhere. The air was perfectly breathable with a slight scent of something like cinnamon. "This place must be millions of years old," Frank said, checking his scanner. "But the systems are still active." "Who built it?" Grace wondered aloud. "We did," said a voice from ahead of them. A man stepped into view from around a curved corridor. He appeared human, middle-aged with gray hair and a short beard. He wore simple clothing in dark blue. "Keith Hudson," the man introduced himself. "Former Earth scientist. I was declared dead 5 years ago." Alan raised his eyebrows. "I remember reading about you. You disappeared during a research mission to the Cygnus sector." Keith smiled. "I didn't disappear. I was found." He gestured for them to follow. "Come. There's much to explain, and not much time." He led them through winding corridors to a large circular room. The center featured a holographic display showing the galaxy, with numerous red points pulsing across it. "Those are the spatial anomalies," Frank said, pointing. "The ones the Concord mentioned." "Yes," Keith confirmed. "But they're not caused by your ship or your technology. They're deliberate creations." "Created by who?" Alan asked. "A faction within the Concord called the Ascendancy. High-ranking officials from multiple species who believe controlling space-time is the next evolutionary step. They've been searching for the technology for centuries." Keith waved his hand, and the display changed to show what looked like ruins on an alien world. This station was built by a species called the Precursors. They vanished over 3 million years ago, leaving only fragments of their knowledge scattered across the galaxy. They had mastered quantum displacement technology and gravitational manipulation, but there was a reason they abandoned it. The hologram shifted again, showing a recording of a star system. As they watched, a point of darkness formed near one planet. The darkness grew, consuming the planet, then the star, then spreading outward. "A runaway collapse of space-time," Keith explained grimly. "Their experiments went wrong. They tried to create a controlled gateway between dimensions but lost control. An entire sector of the galaxy was consumed before they managed to seal the breach. The Precursors abandoned the technology afterward, hiding their research in places like this station." Alan felt cold. "And our ship uses the same principles." "A simplified version, yes. Your scientists rediscovered the basic concepts independently. Quite impressive, actually. But the Harbinger wasn't discovered by accident. The Ascendancy has been watching Earth closely, waiting for you to solve problems they couldn't. They used us as test subjects," Grace said with growing anger. Keith nodded. "They engineered the diplomatic crisis around your ship. They wanted to drive you into hiding so they could study how your technology works without Concord oversight. The mainstream Concord really does fear your ship, but they don't understand the full danger. The Ascendancy does, and they want to harness it." "The ship that helped us escape," Alan said. "Was that yours?" "One of several we've managed to build based on precursor designs. We're a resistance movement, people from many species who discovered the truth about the Ascendancy." Sam had been examining the station's systems on his scanner. "These micro-fractures in space-time, can they be repaired?" "Yes," Keith said. "The Precursors developed technology to heal the fabric of reality. It's built into this station." He turned to Alan. "But the Ascendancy's experiments have gone further than we realized. They've created multiple breaches that are growing unstable. If they continue, we could face a cascade failure like the one that destroyed the Precursor homeworld." "What can we do?" Alan asked. Keith's expression was grave. "The Harbinger is the key. You've created a working quantum drive system that's stable enough for practical use. With some modifications, we can use it to deliver a sealing device to each breach point. But we need to act quickly." The hologram showed 3 locations where the spatial anomalies were largest. Keith explained that these were the primary breach points that needed to be sealed. The Harbinger would need to approach each one and deploy a modified version of its gravitational lance to collapse and seal the breaches. "Won't the Concord fleet try to stop us?" Olivia asked. "Most likely," Keith admitted. "But we have allies within the Concord who can help create a diversion. Once the breaches are sealed, we can present our evidence about the Ascendancy to the full Concord Council." Over the next 3 days, Sam and Frank worked with Keith's team to modify the Harbinger's systems. The quantum drive was recalibrated, and the gravitational lance was adapted to deliver the sealing devices. On the 4th day, Alan gathered his crew on the bridge. "What we're about to do is dangerous," he told them. "If anything goes wrong with the quantum drive during this mission, we could be lost between dimensions. Anyone who wants to stay behind on the station can do so." No one moved. They had come too far together to separate now. The Harbinger departed the ancient station, using conventional drives to reach the first breach point. It was visible as a shimmer in space like heat rising from pavement. The sensors showed it was growing larger by the hour. "Deploy the first sealing device," Alan ordered. The modified gravitational lance fired. A small probe shot into the center of the distortion. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the breach began to shrink, the edges of reality knitting themselves back together. "It's working," Frank reported excitedly. They had sealed 2 breaches when the Concorde fleet found them. 7 warships surrounded the Harbinger as they approached the final and largest breach. "They're ordering us to stand down," Peter reported. "Open a channel," Alan said. "This is Captain Alan Lewis of the Harbinger. We are attempting to seal a dangerous breach in spacetime. Please stand aside." "Your ship is in violation of Concord law," came the reply. "Power down immediately." Keith's resistance ship appeared, engaging 3 of the Concord vessels. "We'll hold them off," Keith's voice came through. "Complete your mission." The Harbinger pushed forward toward the final breach. This one was massive, a swirling vortex of distorted space nearly a mile across. "The sealing device needs to be placed at the exact center," Sam warned, "but our sensors can't penetrate that far into the distortion." Alan made his decision. "I'll take the device in using a shuttle. The quantum shielding should protect me long enough." "That's suicide," Grace protested. "It's the only way," Alan replied. "The Harbinger is too valuable to risk and too important to Earth's future." Before anyone could argue further, Alan transferred command to Grace and headed for the shuttle bay. Minutes later, his small craft approached the breach. "Remember," he told his crew over the comm, "whatever happens, the technology we've created can either destroy or save. It's too powerful to be controlled by any one species. Make sure the Concorde understands that." The shuttle entered the breach, communications failing almost immediately. The Harbinger's crew watched anxiously. After what seemed like an eternity, the swirling vortex shuddered, then began to close. Smaller and smaller it grew, until with a final flash of light it vanished completely. There was no sign of Alan's shuttle. 3 days later, Grace led the Harbinger back to Earth. With Keith's evidence, they exposed the Ascendancy's conspiracy to the full Concorde Council. The faction's leaders were arrested, and a new understanding was reached between Earth and the galactic community. The Harbinger would be the first and last of its kind. Its quantum technology would be used only for peaceful purposes, under joint, human and Concorde supervision. Earth would lead a new scientific council dedicated to the safe exploration of spacetime physics. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the mission, Earth's leaders gathered to unveil a memorial to Captain Alan Lewis. As Admiral Miller gave her speech, a technician noticed an unusual signal being received by the planetary communication array. It was faint and distorted, but the message was clear. "Still alive. Found something amazing. We'll try to return." Somewhere beyond normal space-time, the exploration of the universe continued, and humanity, once feared for creating a warship too powerful for the galaxy, had found its true place among the stars.